Hi, I'm Anthony, Diesel Injection Service. Today we have a 2005 Duramax here. Complaint is a hard start. We found the hand primer to be leaking. This is a very common issue on these trucks. 2001 all the way to 16 use the same hand primer design. A lot of people don't know these are rebuildable. This is a very easy job you can do yourself. You can go ahead and just watch this video. We'll walk you through it and you save yourself $700, $800. So the first step is getting this hand primer pulled off the truck. That we could get it to a clean environment, tear it all apart, get it cleaned up, overhaul it, and then we'll get it back on the truck. Let's go ahead and pull it off. So as you can see, there's not too much needed to get this hand primer out of the engine bay. 3/8 drive to break stuff loose. Electric ratchet makes it easier, not necessary by any means. 12mm swivel socket, flathead screwdriver to get the intake assembly out, and a pair of needle nose to disconnect the fuel lines. So as you guys can see, not much needed to do this job. You could definitely do it at home. Just watch the video, take your time, and you'll get this done with no problems. The first thing we want to do is locate the hand primer in the engine compartment. It's located on the passenger side of the engine compartment here. You see the fuel filter just behind it, as well as the water and fuel sensor. We got a few bolts here to unmount it. Got to get this heater core line out of our way. We also got to get the supply and return line off of this thing, wiring to the fuel heater, and also the water and fuel sensor on the bottom disconnected. So we're going to go ahead and get all that disconnected, get it out so we can overhaul it. Depending on the intake on your truck, it may give you a little more room to get the intake removed from the mouthpiece going to the turbo. So I'm going to go ahead and get that removed now. Okay, so I just finished removing these two hoses here. They're held on by these hose clamps. Once you get those off, the next step is going to be remove your electrical connectors. This top one here for the fuel heater, and then there's a second one here for your water and fuel sensor. Kind of hard to see, but it comes off the bottom of the fuel filter and connects to the harness right next to this connector as well. So we're going to go ahead and get those off, and then we'll be able to unbolt the assembly. Now that I got both of these electrical connectors off, we're going to be able to unbolt the assembly. They're mounted here, here, and here. We just need to get this heater core line out of our way, and then we can unbolt the assembly and pull it out of the truck. Okay, so we just finished removing the mounting bolts. So now we're gonna go ahead and get her out of here. We have to slide this heater core line over the stud here. And then you're able to sneak this assembly very not smoothly off the top. So now we got it out, we could take a little better look at some of the components we were removing in the vehicle. We have our mounting bolts here. There's a nut that holds on a heater core line here. There was two hose clamps that held the fuel lines going to and from the water filter, hand primer assembly, and these two electrical connectors. So really not much involved removing it. And once you get it out, find yourself a real clean environment to work on and overhaul it. This particular one was leaking out of this seam here, and it was sucking air as it was running here, which eventually would lead to a stall and no start condition. So we're gonna go ahead and overhaul it, get this truck back running 100%. Okay, so we got the hand primer assembly here, very clean environment. Just find yourself somewhere that you're not gonna get a lot of dirt introduced to the inside of this thing, but we're gonna get it all cleaned up. It's more important that you're in a clean environment when you're going together with it. So the first thing we need to do is remove the water and fuel sensor from the bottom of this. Ideally, there is a tool to remove these. Now, if you don't have this, you can use a pair of channel locks. Just be careful, you know, it is plastic. Get that component out of there. Quite a bit of fuel is going to drain out the bottom. Next thing you need to do is get the fuel filter removed from the hand primer assembly. Set that to the side. And the last thing we need to do before we start tearing it down is remove the mounting bracket from the assembly itself. So you got two 12mm bolts that hold that on there. Go ahead and break those loose. And get the mounting bracket out of your way. Okay, now we have the hand primer assembly by itself. We're going to go ahead and tear it down. There's 3 Torx on the top. It utilizes a T30 and then 2 T30s on the bottom as well. So we're going to go ahead and break all those loose. You can use a 1/4" ratchet for the whole thing. If you have a screw gun, it'll make your life a little easier. Mind you, there is a spring under here. So it's going to want to go popping up on you. So keep downward pressure on the top of this assembly here. Get your spring pulled off, out of the way. Next thing you want to do, you can pull this connector off for the water and fuel heater. And take this plastic portion off here. We're going to go ahead and remove the 2 bottom Torx all the way out. There's also a spring and a check ball here, so make sure that doesn't go flying and lose that. There's that check ball I was telling you about. Definitely don't want to lose that. Spring here. There's a couple of O-rings you want to pull off the housing. One here on the top. And then also one on the bottom here. I don't know if you can see where that was. It's going to be where this portion pushes through the assembly. There's going to be an O-ring sitting in there. The last thing you're going to want to do is remove this bleeder screw from the top of the assembly. They're plastic, they like to strip out. If they do, get yourself a wrench. You could break it loose with that. Much less likely to strip out. So the last thing you want to do is remove this bleeder screw from the top. It's plastic. So sure enough, because of the heat and being that it's plastic, it strips out very easily. So most of the time, a socket and wrench is going to be your best way to get that loose without creating any kind of problem for yourself. So now that it's all torn down, we're going to take all these components minus the fuel heater, because this is electrical. We don't want to damage this at all. But the rest of this can get cleaned up really well. So we're going to go take it to our wash tank, clean it all up, shine it up, get it how it should be. If you're at home and you don't have access to the wash tank, use some brake cleaner, whatever you have at your disposal. Make sure you get it all blown off, dried off perfectly. You don't want to leave, any kind of water or moisture in this that's going to make its way into the fuel system. So let's go on outside, get this cleaned up, and we'll get it back together. Okay, we're here at the wash tank. So as you can see, all this is real dirty. We're just going to give it a bath, get it as clean as we can get it. Okay, we finished getting everything washed up. As you can see, it's nice and clean now. We need to make sure we dry it off very thoroughly before this goes back together. So if you don't have an air compressor at home, you're gonna have to be creative. I don't know, blow dryer or something, but you definitely don't want to put it together with any moisture. So maybe you need to blow it off the best you can, dry it off with some lint-free towels and let it sit. But we're gonna go ahead and get it blown off, dried off, so we can get it back inside the clean room and reassemble it. Now that we got it all cleaned up, it's time to get this back together. I'm going to go through all the steps on getting this together, trouble-free, so your truck can run like it should. Alright, so first thing first, let's go over the kit that we sell to overhaul this thing. This is made by Alliant Power. It comes with all the O-rings and seals you're going to need for this job, as well as a updated brass fitting. Now this fitting will not strip like the cheap plastic ones that come from the factory, so consider it an upgrade. These kits are readily available right around 50 bucks. Like I mentioned before, the dealer charges an arm and leg for this assembly when they could very easily be overhauled. So let's get to work. First thing we want to do is remove the old apex seals off of this plunger assembly. And note the direction they're in. They do have to go in the same orientation. And depending on the age of the vehicle, the seals are sometimes a lot more hardened and difficult to remove. Keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to open up our kit here, dump out our new parts. First thing we're going to do is install these seals here. Now, in your directions, it shows you very specifically the orientation these need to go in. If you reverse them, you will have a no-start condition. So make sure you pay close attention to that. Before installing these, you do want to add some lubrication on them, such as light film of oil. We're going to do so now. And as you're walking these seals into the groove, you want to really take your time, and that's one of the reasons you want to lubricate these, because if you tear these seals, once again, no start condition. Okay, once these seals are installed, compare them to your directions here and make sure they're installed in opposite direction to one another, with the top lip facing up and the bottom lip facing downwards. Next thing we want to do is install the O-ring onto the housing assembly here. Same thing, lightly lubricate this O-ring. And then we want to install the small O-ring in the bottom of the housing here. Same thing, making sure it's lubricated. One last O-ring here that's been aside in the electrical portion, the fuel heater. Just slides in here. There's a small lip. I don't know if you're able to see that, but it just slides in here in the center, and you'll see there's a small lip, maybe about a 1/4 inch down. You get that O-ring in there. You'll have one last O-ring left in your kit. This is going to go on the bleeder screw here. So now that we got all our new O-rings installed, we're going to go ahead and begin reassembling this. So first things first is we need to get this hand primer cap installed on this component here. This can be slightly tricky because the seal is facing outwards. So what you're going to do is you're going to push it on from one side, get it started, and then very gently fold that seal into there so that can push down for you. You're going to install your spring here. A little bit of fumbling. The hold down plate here, and quite a bit of tension here, so you're going to have to push this down and hold it down as you start your Torx bolts that go on the top. So you'll install your 3 Torx bolts. Make sure you get them going by hand. You do not want to strip out the housing. So we need to make sure we match up this portion that's going to plug into the wiring harness with the hole here. So when we're guiding this in, it can be pushed into the assembly. Ideally, you want to do it with the plunger facing upwards, or an O-ring or the check ball or something can fall out of place. And you'll see our electrical connector starting to protrude from the top of the primer assembly. You're going to go ahead and push it in and center home. You'll feel a nice distinctive click once it pushes, and that electrical connector will be sticking through the top. We're going to install the 2 Torx screws on the bottom. Once again, get them started by hand. The primer assembly is aluminum. It's very easy to cross thread this stuff. So doing it by hand is going to prevent any costly mistakes. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and torque these down now. Run them all the way down. We're going to snug them up. Now, these don't go very tight. They use the Torx bit for a reason, so you can't over crank on these and crack the plastic of this. So once you run them all the way down, you're just going to slightly cinch them, okay? Or you can risk cracking the fuel heater assembly. Now that this is torqued on the bottom, we can install the electrical connector to this portion that's protruding here. And the reason we waited to torque this is we're going to remove this torque screw that's closest to this water and fuel, excuse me, not water and fuel, your fuel heater assembly. And you're going to run one of the torque bolts through here, and it's going to act as a ground for that wiring assembly. So you go ahead and run all these down and tighten them on the top. You want to do this evenly. So don't run one of them all the way down and leave the other one, completely loose. So all three of these are tightened. Ground wires to this third Torx bolt. Electrical connectors secured on there. These two are tightened. Our check balls, nice and centered. Last thing we need to do is install our updated bleeder screw on the top. And there you have it. The hand primer head is rebuilt. So now all we got to do is get the filter installed on here. We're going to put this back on the bracket that it gets installed on the vehicle and get it back in the truck for you. We always recommend using a factory fuel filter on a Duramax. A lot of guys like putting aftermarket filtration on the truck. It's great if you have a fast pump or something. But if you don't have a lift pump on the truck, the best thing to do is run an AC Delco filter. Use a genuine one. So your fuel filter is going to come with two O-rings. A new O-ring for the water and fuel sensor here. So we're going to install that O-ring. This will thread into the bottom of the fuel filter. And this is plastic, guys. So when you go to tighten this down, it doesn't take much. Okay? Boom. That's it. Second O-ring is going to go at the top here. Same thing as with all filters. Lubricate that O-ring. Get it installed on the groove of the filter. Thread it back on the assembly. Now, obviously when it's off the truck, it's very hard to torque this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get it installed on the vehicle and we're going to give the filter a final cinching, make sure we don't have any leaks. We'll get the bracket reinstalled on here. There you have it. guys rebuilt, saved yourself a substantial amount of money. As you can see, very easy and straightforward job, you guys. And once again, if you have any questions, give us a call. We're available Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Phone number is 909-885-0590. If you have any technical questions in regards to installing this kit, give us a call and we can help you out. So we're going to go head on outside, get this installed back in the customer's vehicle, and get the truck fired up. All right, let's get this installed back in the vehicle. We'll show you how that's done. So we want to get this rotated around to where it's going to be positioned in the vehicle and slide the heater core through the stud there. Get our mounting bolts started. The nut on for our heater core line. We're going to go ahead and run these down. Okay, so the hand primer assembly is securely mounted back in the vehicle. It wouldn't hurt to give these two 12mm bolts that mount it to the mounting bracket a little snug. Obviously outside the vehicle, once again, you can't get a good amount of torque on that. So we'll go ahead and do that now. All right. Next thing we want to do is get our fuel lines reinstalled. So that's real straightforward. We'll relieve the tension on these clamps, slide it over, and they'll be good to go. Now we need to get our connectors plugged back in. One for the fuel heater. This guy conveniently leaves, and that was sarcastic, right under this charged air cooler pipe. And then your second electrical connector at the very bottom that we unplugged is for your water and fuel sensor. Boom. So we're gonna snug this filter down. Reinstall our air intake horn, and we'll be done. Don't forget to plug back in your mass airflow sensor. There you have it. Hand primer's back installed in the vehicle. Last thing we need to do is prime it up and get the truck fired up. If you guys like what you saw today, go ahead and hit the like button below. Leave a comment, tell us what you want to see next. We can do another how-to. Love to get feedback from you guys. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll be popping more of these videos out. Thank you.